Welcome to the Disruption Lab podcast. Let's go ahead and get started with this next conversation. A little background on this conversation first. The Founder Stories series is one of the first series that we started as part of Keystone Sessions. We saw an opportunity to start putting the stories out there about founders who have not only started companies, but have gone through that journey, really try to put the faces and stories to the things that we've read about, maybe in the business journal or the local paper, or that we haven't heard about. But also, let's go a little bit deeper and more in depth and understand the origin stories. What were some of those real life challenges and experiences for those founders, and how can we learn from their stories? So we're lucky tonight to have, when you think about the startup trajectory here in Kansas City and you think about some of the wins that we've had over the last few years, this company, this individual has been central to that story. So we're lucky to have him here. John, I don't do introductions, so I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. Maybe tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. First of all, this is an awesome resource and awesome to be here. And I know you're doing a lot of good work, the hard work of helping people get started. Getting started is absolutely the hardest part of any of it. So anything, I see a lot of head nodding. Yeah, it's hard for everybody, right? So I'm thrilled to be here. I'm John, the founder and CEO of PayIt, digital government with integrated payments software company. Any Jackson County residents here on an 816 day. So if you paid your property taxes online and there was that little chat bot interface, that's our software. Or if you live in Kansas, we don't do the assessment. We don't set the value. We just help you pay your
good clarification,
taxes.
John. Good clarification.
Just for the record, we do it, but we serve state and local governments across North America, and I'm a Kansas City guy, Blue Springs High School, and there we go. I knew that would happen eventually. And then Baker University, and then got my start at Cerner way back in the day. And anyway, I don't know what.
So that's good.
My soccer career, maybe.
I don't want to talk about your soccer career. I don't know that.
So anyway, there I was. I will just say I scored the game-winning goal in college against my wife's alma mater, and that's really the only highlight that matters in my life.
Before she married you,
as she would be quick to point out to our daughter, do you know what I was doing when Daddy scored that goal? I was in high school. And thank you.
All right. Well, there's that.
She's younger.
Yeah, we're going to.
Anyway.
Let's make sure we include that in the clips.
Clip that.
Please. Thank you. All right. So Kansas guy, local.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Local schools.
Right.
So you've been around the region for the whole time.
Yeah.
Cerner. So first real job? In college, first job?
Yeah. First job out of college.
What'd you do there?
I whatever they told me, but I started
like every other Cerner employee.
Yeah. I started working in support. I carried a pager. Like probably nobody's seen a pager here. Carried a pager, worked a support queue. It was like my foot in the door. I wanted to learn. I still have the offer letter in my office, and then it was just a chance to get in and start to learn software and business and be a part of it, and kind of grew the career and kind of ended up working in all different parts of the company, and fortunate enough to get to spend a little time with Neil and Cliff, just sort of with a laptop in the corner while they were running parts of the business. And it was better than an MBA, frankly, seeing that and learning those lessons about business building, software, urgency. I'm sure you guys hate hearing me talk about urgency. But anyway,
it's not a commentary about your age, but this was probably fairly early in the Cerner story, or like early-ish in the Cerner story.
Yeah. Let's see. Was it 95 to 2001?
Okay.
Yeah.
We get sensitive about our age, I know. So
Yeah.
We won't go into
I'm
that.
still here.
Yeah. So how long were you there? Oh, so six years. 6 years.
Yep.
All right. But now, what did you do after that? Because there was a few chapters of this story that I think are important to.
Okay. Yeah. Right? So, at Cerner, I became technical. I learned I have a business degree, finance. I I went to Cerner, started learning that, became technical, understood it, taught myself to code a little bit, which seems ludicrous now, because I can't do anything meaningful now. I've been a CEO too long. So did that, ran some big projects, did some CFO consulting work for hospital CFO consulting work. I helped them build new business units, which was part of how I got that entrepreneurial bug. So got asked to go help build a data business for them, which I did, learned a lot. And then at the end, I got into sales and started selling. And then I thought, like every new executive they hired came from a big blue chip, like an IBM or a big tech company. And I thought, oh, well, I have those aspirations. I wonder if I can go make it in a bigger company. And so I ended up going to work for EMC, which is now a part of Dell. For the time, probably the 6th or 7th largest tech company in the world. And I went and sold for them for 26 quarters and was in their executive development program and just learned a lot in that capacity. And then from there, I got recruited to be the CEO of a marketing technology company, which you would think, how do you go from being an EMC sales guy to the CEO of a software company? It's because they were out of options. They were just failing. They were losing.
I don't know that I would admit it that way. I would say that differently, right?
No, we speak truth here,
Okay,
right?
right,
Yeah,
fine.
I mean, they were failing and they were about to give up, and I was 32 and single and didn't lack confidence and thought, I can always go get a job like the one I have. I wonder if I can do this and turn this thing around. And so I took the chance and took the thing and rebuilt the company and all the tech and off its own balance sheet. And I learned a lot about leadership and myself and stress and man, just tenacity and things like that. And we really reimagined this business and built it and ended up selling it. And but it was kind of at the tail end of that.
So was it post acquisition, post sale, and you were like in an earn-out phase? So you were still there, or were you actually?
No, I actually decided to leave.
Okay.
And then they decided to sell the company.
Okay.
I don't know if it was because I was leaving or not, but it might have been. Anyway, but cool business. We had clients like Nike and Audi and Volkswagen, McDonald's and GM. Awesome experience working with some of the most sophisticated brands in the world. I learned an awful lot about it. But it was in that context that I'd learned so much. And then if I shift gears into the PayIt story a little bit, I was running that. I back up maybe 9 months or so, and I was running that business, and I got that postcard in the mail from the state of Missouri. You guys have heard this story 1,000 times. It was time to renew the registration of one of my vehicles, and I hit mo.gov/awful 90s web experience, and I plugged in the pin and the plate, and it was invalid. And I kind of just thought, of course it is. Like, you have to be kidding me. I just want to give you money and get my sticker from my license plate and get back to my life. And I couldn't do it. And instead found myself down at the DMV, and I was just sort of sitting there working, killing time. And I thought, of course, this should be different. It should be smarter, more modern, more convenient, more connected. It turns out more secure. Woof. And it was just someone who's biased towards platforms that are in the cloud that are smart and data-driven and modern, and thought, of course, we should go do this. We should go reimagine the way governments at city, county, and state government do business or serve constituents, all of us, and make it more digital, like everything else in our world. And so off we went.
So, all right, user group of one though, right? So like, this is a problem you had, you probably heard other people had, but when did you know, like, when did you feel traction, or when did you feel like, well, there's a there? I think I've heard you tell this story before.
Yeah. So I mentioned I'm arrogant, right? Or I'm an optimist, an eternal optimist. That's probably a better way to say it. So for me, it was like, okay, huge TAM, total addressable market. So big market, right? There's almost $2 trillion that flows between residents and state and local government just in the U.S., just state and local every year. And it's growing. So, okay, big market. A lot of old tech companies, a lot of old providers. It's a laggard market, not quick to adopt new technology at the time, especially. So that's interesting. So it means there's an opportunity to disrupt, which was really interesting. I was drawn to the sense of mission and purpose. Man, can we go build a great business that delivers world-class software to change the experience for residents and take friction out for them, for us? And like, could my daughter grow up in a world that she didn't even know about the DMV, or ever having to, like, these things not just happen on her phone automatically or automagically, right? And so that was pretty motivating. And so what I did was I kind of networked my way into the governor's office and was able to get a meeting down in Jeff City with the DMV, because I wanted to know, I knew there were these really old systems in the back office government. What I didn't know is, could we get to the data in order to do what we wanted to do? So we knew it would be in these really old systems. And so I kind of convinced them to set up a meeting for me with the DMV, CIO, and some other people from their team. And I went down and I sat in a windowless conference room.
Did you have a prototype or anything? Like, what was that conversation like at that point for you?
Not
you
yet.
just sell. You're just selling.
Yeah, I was just there to ask
vaporware
questions,
is what they
and
call that.
they were confused
Okay.
while I was there, and I just kept name dropping, and they started sharing, and I started drawing on the whiteboard, and they started answering questions, and then I don't know, in the course of like an hour and a half or so, I figured out we could get to the data. Like, okay, problem solved. Not that it would be easy. There are other people who make that easy. But we could do it. And so I was like, good enough. Thanks for the time, and off I went. And so then I started building a prototype, because I needed to be able to like tell a different story and try to find a customer.
Now, is this when those coding skills paid off, or were you have somebody else that was like helping you at this point in time? Is it still just you?
No, there was an ex-Cerner guy that had an agency here that did mobile development.
Okay.
And I hired him. I paid them to go build like a first prototype.
Okay.
Side note, I tried to hire them to be CTO and give them equity, and they decided not to.
Well,
whoops. Yeah. Well, yeah, that would have been good for them. Anyway, things work out the way they're supposed to work out, so that's quite all right. And then, so that was like the first thing, like I can get to the data. So that was like a big aha moment. And then the other was, there was a guy I used to know from some community service work I did, who is the chief investment officer of a investment firm, private equity firm out of New York. And I reached out to him just to get some advice and to kind of talk it, so big believer in talking out your idea a lot. You probably hear that from Kevin all the time. It's like the best advice, to talk it out, because you hear yourself practice and pitch, and you get more concise, and then you get good feedback, and you get bad feedback too. Like, by the way, I had a lot of people tell me this would never work. Like, thanks. Like, who cares? So don't let people dissuade you from chasing. It's just because they can't imagine it doesn't mean it can't happen. It just means they can't do it. Sorry, losing track here.
No, these are the nuggets that I'm looking for right there. Like, we want to talk about grit and those things here in a minute. But yeah, so you call the guy in New York.
So anyway,
yep.
He says, I wasn't raising money. He goes, he asked me if I was looking to it. I said, no, I don't think I know enough to know that yet. And I said, what I'm trying to figure out is, like, I was able to get to the governor's office and then to the DMV. Well, how do I scale that? How do I get to 12 governors and get to the DMV that way? Because you can't just call up and show up. And so he said, oh, well, we do some lobbying work. I know a guy. And so he says, why don't you go to this governor's conference with this guy, and let's see what happens. And he'll just get you in front of these people, in front of these governors. And I'm like, hell yeah. So off we went, get on a plane, had my prototype now. So it's on my phone. And I had just this really crisp, like, minute and a half pitch, and talked to 8 governors in 24 hours. And all 8 said, yeah, come see, grabbed their staffer and said, get John with Secretary so-and-so or the commissioner such and such, 8 for 8. And this guy looked at me and he said, I've never seen anything like this. And And I thought, well, shit, now I got to buy, plane tickets and stuff. So I'm going to figure that out. Anyway, so that was like the other big moment of, okay, there's interest, there's real interest. And then I just have to go figure out how to convert that to contracts, which then is a whole nother story. But that was like another big aha moment.
So up to this point in time, though, John, your career had been in large companies, all large companies to this point in time. The watching business units develop in a large company, I agree with you. I get an entrepreneurial sense. I've done that so many times. Like I understand why that is very entrepreneurial. They call it.
Yeah.
But and you're what I would characterize. I think they categorize CEO, your sales CEO, in that kind of mindset. But starting a company from the ground up.
Yeah. I honestly saw a big opportunity, and I wanted to know if I was good enough to do it.
Okay.
And I didn't want to fast forward in my life and look back and wonder, could I have done it? And I had learned so much. The thing I had enjoyed most about turning a business around was how hard it was,
right?
And like how much you learn. And man, I love reading stories of entrepreneurs and of all sizes. Like I'm so inspired by it. No matter what it is, because it's all hard. And it's just like you think about what makes a difference in the world or in communities and building, job creating. And it's just the most magical thing ever. So I wanted to know, could I do it?
Sure. I mean, that arrogance, that ego drives a lot of people, in a good way to like say, I can do this.
Yeah, most of the time it's good.
Most of the time it's good. So to that end, like it's hard to do.
Yeah.
What's the hardest thing about what you've done with PayIt, in your opinion?
All of it. All of it, because all of it is, it's like, it's always easier for it not to work out. It's always easier to stop or to give up or to just think, damn, I can't overcome this.
What kept you going?
I'm not smart enough to quit. No, that's
I can relate to that.
Yeah. Like, I think, that like I'm tenacious. Like I won't quit. I won't give up. No matter what it is, that's just who I am.
Okay.
Once I set my mind on it, I'll figure it out. So
now
anyway,
you guys started in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
True story.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the origins are like when people ask me where did it start, I say I was laying in bed and talking to my wife. We had she was 10-month-old.
Oh, wow.
And my wife had stepped away from her career to
go start a company. Yeah.
And I said, couldn't sleep. I'm like, I have to do this. Like, we have to go do this. And she was just like, okay. Like, no hesitation, probably because she knows how I'm wired. And I said, but look, it's not only will we not make any money, we'll write all the checks. And I'll be gone a lot. Like, I'll have to work a lot. And she was just like, you'll figure it out. And it's like, it can't happen without that level of support.
Sure. Yeah.
That got hard sometimes because you were gone a lot. Like, lived on airplanes for a long time. And, but anyway, like, so that, and then, when, like, started going, and then, like, this thing's starting to turn into something. So went to my longtime friend, Mike Plunkett, who I knew from Missouri Boys State, who has, like, is like the yin to the yang.
Yep.
So I'm very much sales and market facing. Like that's what I do. And he's a very good operator and has that mindset. All the stuff my ADD doesn't allow me to do. And we partnered up and started to build a business.
Awesome. So when was this? When was PayIt Incorporated? What year was that?
September of 2013.
Okay. So 10 years ago, basically. All right. And then when did you guys first get like the first office? When did you?
We waited a couple of years. We used to what we called squawfus. So we would just, as we started, we would meet in coffee shops and work, or airports and work and travel. and kind of just worked where we were. And then as we started adding people, we would just tell them which coffee shop we were going to go to. And we would just kind of sit there all day and work and buy coffee, of course, and kind of just work. And we did that for a long time. We were probably up to 20-ish people, and we would just show up and take over a coffee shop. Like we found some that had private rooms they'd let us use.
I'm sure they didn't mind.
As long as we kept buying stuff, like we were somewhat cognizant of that.
Sure.
Open up a tab and tip well, and they didn't care. And we were just the nerds in the back, I think.
How long did it take you to get the first customer?
Forever. Almost 2 years. Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal. Yeah.
Who was your first customer?
State of Kansas, the Kansas Turnpike Authority.
Okay.
Honestly, like every market has early adopters. So we had to find an early adopter. And it was literally, I ran into Governor Brown back at the airport, started talking to him, and he liked the idea. So he texted his Secretary of Transportation, who was a former private sector guy, and he said, "Hey, meet John." So we went and met. He got it, and he's like, "Yeah, come do it at the Turnpike Authority. Like, let's start there."
Okay.
And because I can make that happen. And we put a contract together, and off we went.
Now, was that the use case that in your mind where you thought you'd start?
Nope. And then the funniest part, is because I'm stubborn. In our business model, we get paid, like we don't charge for the software. Stay with me. We don't charge to implement it or integrate it or any of those things, or we don't charge for maintenance or support. Provide all of that on our own nickel. And then we just make a little bit of money every time somebody uses the software, a little transaction fee and then the payment processing. And that's how we do it. We think it creates really good alignment with our clients. It keeps us focused on innovating and serving them and delivering for them and being a great partner. And we endeavor to be the best partner our clients have ever had. And so I think that's like core. And he kept trying to tell me, let me pay you. Let me write, like I have budget, and it was a few $100,000. And I was like, no, I don't want it. And he was like, listen to me, take the money.
Does that sound sillier when you say it now? Like, would you do that differently?
It sounded silly the entire time.
Okay, all right.
And it was like, but I believed in the model, in the alignment. And I didn't want it. I mean, it's a long reason, but I just believed in it to the point where I was willing to risk the first customer. And he finally agreed.
I don't think people understand this point sometimes. And I can tell, a real sales guy when they say something like, I was there for 26 quarters. That's somebody who's like, it has a sales mindset for sure. But also good salespeople understand incentive alignment. Right. And so this was important for you to maintain the incentive alignment of what the future state of this business was going to be.
Yeah. Because I wasn't trying to do a deal.
Right.
I was trying to build a company and change the way it all operated, and some behavior on their side that I thought was frankly just dated. They wanted to pay us to build custom software, and we don't build custom software. We have products that we deliver. And so we had a vision that we wanted to align to their needs. But we didn't want them to pay us for it, because then that meant we were building them software. We weren't building them software. We were using that client, like we use every client, to advance the platform and products that we deliver. So all the R&D happens there, and then we can go turn it on for more and more clients all the time. And that's how you build scale and get operating leverage and end up, well, we're not where we want to end up yet, but you know what I mean? Like that's how you do it differently. So it was like a key fight, just like, and there's another one early on. There was another state that we won a big contract with, and we were down there meeting with them to start doing some of this work. And they said, "Okay, we're going to start here and tackle these things," and we're fired up because this is our revenue rounded to zero still at this point. We had some revenue, but not a lot. And this was potentially a big client for us. And then he said, "And this gentleman he introduced is going to help you design the software." And I said, "Time out." No. Yeah, that's not how this works. "Oh yeah, no, it'll have to. We'll tell you." And in short, we kept trying to get him to say, no, that's not how it works. Like you wouldn't tell Amazon like how to build a data center and which storage to put in the racks or any of that stuff. You just want dial tone and outcomes. Like hold us accountable to those things. Don't tell us how to do it. That's not how it works. And we just couldn't agree. And so, I mean, I literally drove down there and tried one more time and then fired the customer.
Okay.
Awesome call to make to investors.
Yeah, I'll bet. You guys are in an interesting spot in that your customer who pays you is not the same one that you're designing experiences for. So you've got end user experiences that are very important to them, to your customer.
Yeah.
But you also have, it sounds like, I mean, and I've talked to other GovTech founders before, you're also dealing with institutions that are old. They have legacy systems that predate like most of what any of us would recognize.
Yeah.
How hard is that to design an experience that is compelling to today's mobile user that meets that bar, where you're dealing with institutions behind the scenes that aren't modern, don't think that way?
I think it's part of our secret sauce is the team of people that think like user-centered design at scale, that care a lot about the people we serve and how to impact their lives through design, through software. And that's who they are. That's their superpower. And it's really an amazing thing to watch that just impact the flywheel, if you will, of good software development and then outcome delivery. And then, it's really powerful. It's like key to the whole thing, separate from these. So that's like, how do you get mass adoption, which is how we make money and serve our clients. And then it's, how do you partner with, a government, a city, a county, a state, a province, so that you can go do that together. And that's often harder than, once you see the software and start using it, you're like, oh, of course. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. We get that feedback all the time from residents, how much they love it. The hardest part is breaking through with the government, with our client, to get them to kind of see the art of the possible.
Sure.
And how dramatically we can impact their outcomes, and how they serve their communities through technology.
Is that narrative one that you've found repeatable, or is that somewhat unique to each institution that you're dealing with, each state or each government? Or
it's probably just nuanced a little bit. No, but again, it's like, of course, we should serve residents digitally the way they want and take friction out for them of doing business with the government. So that's pretty universal. The challenge had been, and still is, it's like they don't always recognize that as a need inside the walls of a city hall, right? They think, oh, the money comes in or these things happen. It's always happened this way. The way we've done it for the last decade's fine.
Right.
Well, guess what? Outside those walls, the world is changing so fast. And our expectations as constituents has changed so immensely. And it's like the old partners, the old providers, the old way doesn't work anymore, or it's inadequate. And it creates the friction that we've all experienced. And so part of our challenge is to figure out how to align to them and partner them to select us to help them unlock, digital service delivery and all the benefits that come with it. But once you do, it's magical.
Is the key to that finding a champion on the
always, right? Yep. Yeah. So there's, plenty of reasons to do it and benefits, but change is hard for anybody, especially inside the walls of governments a lot of times. Even the champions inside face the bureaucracy too, right? Like it's hard to get change. So you need people who will kind of grab it and help you get it done.
Yeah, you're not looking for the advocate. You're looking for the champion. You're looking for that person that's actually going to be.
Yeah. It usually needs to be several people.
It's different. That's a very different.
Yeah, in some cases it's a mayor. Like in the city of Toronto, the mayor, the previous mayor, was like he had to resign, but not related to us. But it was one of those things where he said, "No, this is important. The way we serve residents needs to, we need to serve them where they are in a new way." And he made it a priority, along with some other city councilors and some other city leadership, the CFO, the city manager, and a bunch of other people. It's like, we will go get this done. And they did. And that's what it takes, right? Is somebody to stand up and say, we're going to make a difference in the old way. Like, we can't just keep doing it because we've always done it that way.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. So, how many employees do you have now?
Like 250 and growing.
All right. 250. So, when you guys were, I think still over here on Broadway, right? So smaller office, less employees, compare and contrast that to where you're at now, like in terms of the spirit in the office, the attitude that people were like, how is that different for you now as the CEO, being where you were in a smaller group, now in a larger group?
It's complex, right? Some of it is just the growth and the size. Some of it is we're so distributed. Like, we have employees and clients in like 30 states and provinces. So we have offices, like we're here in Lightwell, downtown, Nashville, Toronto, I don't know, a bunch of other places. And then we have a lot of people in Austin and some other places, right? So it's different from all of us being jammed into some once cool office.
Oh, so it's cool. All right. So yeah. I was thinking people were probably unhappy there. And so there was like a catalytic moment where people
I'm sure there were people that were unhappy there. I loved being around everybody.
Okay.
Like, the energy's awesome. People don't always love being around me. That's fair. Anyway, but then it's like, so growth kind of forced it to evolve. And then the pandemic forced it to change too.
Sure.
And then the back to work thing or not. And so we find ourselves now in how would you describe it? A hybrid. There's some people that come in all the time. We kind of find reasons for people to come in, and they're there. But it's also opened up, I guess, the pipeline to talent to be anywhere. So we have people in lots of different places now.
So you can support that now, yeah. And that was kind of a forced function thing through the pandemic.
Yeah, I think some of it, like when you start and go for a couple of years without an office, you figure out how to do that.
Yep.
And then and how to communicate and kind of make it work. So then when it goes away, and plus we were traveling all the time anyway.
It was a little bit more in the DNA to start with.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 816 Day.
Yeah.
Here, celebrating Kansas City.
Yeah.
Appreciate that you've been in Kansas City, kept the company in Kansas City. What's it been like building it? I've heard you talk about this before. What's it like building a tech company in Kansas City?
Yeah. Well, this is something I'm passionate about. Maybe I'll back up. And so Mike and I funded the business ourselves for the first year-ish. And then when we raised seed money, we started doing that. Like, my parents were teachers. I grew up in Blue Springs. We didn't have a network or a rich uncle. Turns out that's way easier if you have that, I guess. And so we just started working it. And I remember had networks on both coasts from past life. And we were in Silicon Valley at a lunch, and this venture investor said, I'll give you 3 times what you're looking for. And we got excited. But you have to move the business Silicon Valley, San Francisco, or Austin. And I was like, well, why? Like, well, there's not enough tech talent in Kansas City to build a big company. And I won't repeat what I said, but we basically told him to pound sand, and we can do it here too. And so we figured it out. And then you fast forward, man, I don't know, we've raised like $230 million in growth capital all in. And now those investors all come to Kansas City. A bunch of them, or several of them, have invested in other businesses, a number of them. We included a bunch of local investors who I know of then we've returned proceeds to, and they've invested into other tech companies in Kansas City as well. I just saw one last night. There's a group that, VinQ, if you guys know VinQ, Danny Z, awesome guy. Some of those investors were investors in us as well.
All right.
So anyway, like the ecosystem.
How much of the money that you've raised, I know you probably don't have the exact numbers, was local money?
Not much of it.
Okay.
So I always the early money, like the seed money. There was good seed money here. Like we raised $750 in seed money.
Okay.
I bet 500 of it was local.
So I think there's a fallacy, or there's this perception amongst founders in Kansas City that if you can't raise money here, you can't build a company here.
Yeah.
And you would say that's not.
I'd say that's absolutely not true. Like, it's like, you hear them say it, for football fans, if you can play left tackle, the NFL will find you wherever you are, wherever you went to school, right? Man, I tell you what, all of the early stage investors are looking all over the country for like now I invest in software companies and some other funds that invest in growth stage, early stage startups, and they're investing in companies in Kansas City and in Little Rock, or you name it. So yeah, there's money. It's more accessible all the time if you're building something that requires that, or you want to go that route.
So,
and this is the guy who could probably connect you to most of it too, by the way.
Thank you. Not sure that's true. Yeah, I'm not sure that's true. For all of you that are thinking I can connect you to money now, stop. Don't think about it any further. I have this like bone to pick with civic leaders in Kansas City sometime. We like to celebrate acquisitions of companies in Kansas City. And so we'll celebrate, T-Mobile buys Sprint, and some of us are like shaking our head going, this is not good. This
right,
is not
right,
good.
right.
Oracle buys
Yeah.
Cerner,
Yeah.
like not good, not good. You just closed an acquisition. This is the kind of acquisition I'd love for us to you're acquiring.
Yeah.
And I think that we should celebrate that, because you're bringing resources, talent, and business to Kansas City. So tell us a little bit about that acquisition, how that came to be.
Yeah, so we bought a company out of Nashville called S3. They do hunt and fish licensing software, event management software for departments of conservation. So if you've bought a hunter and fishing license and you store it in their mobile app, like in Missouri or something, they're a part of us now. And so we, those people are in our office a bunch. We'll maintain the Nashville office. But some of the hiring now will happen here, already has happened here. It turns out they had some employees in Kansas City. So we see them in the office from time to time now. But it's cool. And I think I will pile onto your point, because it's like, if there were any civic leaders on 816 Day listening here, like of course, trying to attract Amazon, right? Like those, of course, you have to do that. But the smartest thing you can do is like double and triple down on your homegrown companies that can turn into the next Cerner, or the next HR Block, or the next Hallmark, or the next Sprint. Like, you should be doing all you can to help those companies flourish, right?
I love to ask those same civic CEOs, civic leaders, like, tell me who your top 10 funders are. And, they quickly go through the, Garmin, Cerner, Hallmark, H&R. They quickly go through the Rolodex of who their biggest check writers are. And then you ask them the question, how many of those companies were attracted to Kansas City? How many of those companies started in Kansas City?
Yeah.
And without fail, they all started here.
Right. Of course.
So then you do the quick back of the napkin math. And I think, and if he was here, you guys, if you ever see him, you got to tell him I gave him credit for this. Jim Erickson at the EDC was sitting right here on this stage, and he made a comment that I have since run with. Every startup is a headquarters.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well said.
So if we could spend a fraction of the money to attract companies that are probably more easily suited to move or easily suited to start.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Here, then we get the next Cerner. I've heard you say you want to be the next Cerner. You want to be the next.
I think we can.
Kansas City, Kansas City company.
It's an ambitious goal, but I know it to be true. I mean, it's a huge market. We have the right investors. We have the right trajectory. An awesome team. We're solving a really important set of problems, and man, it's just I just know it, and I think it's important to all of us. I would speak for every employee at PayIt to say, like, it's important to us to be building here in Kansas City and creating those. I think about when I got out of school, figuring out what I was going to do. I mean, I had a Cerner to go to, and that's how I got connected to software. And man, what if I hadn't? What if they hadn't built a company here? What if they'd have moved their company to Silicon Valley? They probably could have. They didn't. They built it here. And I think about that a lot, about the people that we create opportunities for, and they come in and they learn and they deliver, and then maybe they learn something that sparks their own journey, and they go off and they create the next great company, something bigger than us. Like, I think that matters a lot. We take a lot of pride in it, and there's a lot more to come there too.
What do we see in the future for PayIt? Like, where do you see this in the next 5 years?
Oh, more organic growth, a lot more organic growth, more acquisitions. We're on the hunt. We will continue to grow just through more software development, more client relationships, but for sure. But we'll do more acquisitions as well.
Do you consider Kansas City a GovTech hub?
I don't know. I guess I'd consider PayIt a GovTech hub.
Sure.
I probably don't. I probably should get out of that.
I think there's other GovTech players in Kansas City, though, right? I mean,
sure. Yeah, there are. You're right.
I'm just thinking, like, as a market, when you think about like what is it that defines Kansas City, I think one of our problems is we don't have an identity. I hear that that's a problem. We fight over what our identity is.
Okay.
Architecture, engineering, construction, life sciences, even life sciences is fragmented. When I look around, there seems to be like a hub of GovTech companies that are in this area.
Yeah, I think like I guess the way I think about it, I know you make a great point. There are. I guess I think about it like in the spirit of Ewing Kauffman. Like this is a great entrepreneur's town.
Why is that, in your opinion?
Kind of, man, that work rate. You know, like people in this part of the world aren't afraid to work hard. And man, I tell you what, you can't build a business and not just work a lot, like, or you can't accomplish anything without working a lot. Like that's just a fact. Like you can't work smart enough to not work hard too. And I think people in this region get that, know how to work, right? I think that matters a lot. Optimism is key. You've said it a couple times already. Like I think grit is like the most important skill or talent, and you can develop it. You might be born with it, but you can also develop it. And then confidence. Like I have distinct points in time in my journey where I remember like growing my own confidence.
And say more. Like
yeah, like I can remember. So I used to do this exercise at Cerner when I would go into meetings, and I knew Neil was going to be in the meeting, Neil Patterson. And he wouldn't even know me. Like I was just in the room doing quarterly business reviews and things like that. And I just had a laptop and the spreadsheets in case a question came up. But I would see they were doing all the divisions would do some presentations like a couple of times. And so I would see all those the night before. I'd go through them and I would make notes. What is Neil going to ask each of them? Like, what are the questions? And because the guy was brilliant. I mean, a genius. And like, if I could kind of see some of the same things he would see, I would just be like, oh, okay. And like it helped. I remember it helped grow confidence because I always thought like, no, it was always somebody else that ran companies. It wasn't me. Like it was always somebody else that started a company. It wasn't me. Like my mom was a first grade teacher. My dad was a community college professor and administrator. Like that's not what we do. And then it was like, oh, well, they don't really know. Another one, I remember there was some guy that I ended up working on a project with who went to, can't remember, it might have been Harvard or it was like an Ivy League MBA, and he was in.
Yeah.
And he was working on the stuff, and he said he talked differently than I talked. And he said, oh, I've built this model to work. We were working on this project, building this new business unit. You know, I've worked on this model, and he's talking about his model, and he kept talking about his model. And well, can I see it? I'm like, I don't know what a model looks like. I've never built a model. It's a spreadsheet. And I'm like, well, son of a gun. I do know what a model is. Like, it's just like, there's so many things.
Confidence builder.
Yeah, it was just like, okay, these guys, like, they're like not, it's just like, anyway, like there are those things, right? Where you, along the way, it's like, well, why not me? Why not me?
That was the best corporate advice I ever got was, I got invited into a meeting of the C-suite at Sprint. And I was intimidated and like you thought I belong in this room. These people are all there's something they have that I don't have. And at the time, the gentleman who I reported to said, no, the cliche, they all put their pants on the same way you do. And I was like, oh, I don't know. You've never seen me put my pants on. But he said, like, observe them, like just sit in here and listen to the ones that you respect, the ones that you are most maybe intimidated by. Observe them in the meeting and note when they ask questions and the kind of questions they ask and write them down and like pay attention to that part of it. Like, don't worry about what we're talking about. Pay attention to how people are interacting and how people are leading a meeting or driving a meeting and so on. And so for the first couple times I was in the meeting, that's all I did. Somebody could have said, well, what do you think? And I'd be like, I don't know. I'm not paying any attention at all. I'm just like writing down the questions that everybody's asking. But it really helped me build like, oh, I would have asked that.
Yeah.
You know, it helped me build kind of that confidence around I belong in this room a little bit more.
100%. Like everybody has to kind of go through that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, John, for those coming behind you, like for those who are starting their journeys right now, they're sitting in a coffee shop trying to figure out how they can get their first prototype, talking about how they're going to get their first customer. What advice do you give to, early stage founders now, like based on where you've been?
Oh man, there's probably a lot of things. I think maybe the best thing is like just keep going, start and don't stop. Like I always think the difference, like this, it's almost cliche. Like one of the differences between us and others is we didn't stop. We just kept going. We kept figuring it out. And it never even, and I mean this sincerely, somebody asked me one time, like, did you ever almost quit, or did you ever think it wasn't going to work, or what did you do when you thought it wasn't going to work? And I kind of thought about it. And I thought I never did. Like I just sincerely never. I didn't have a plan B. I'm a burn the boats guy. Like meaning when I was leaving the previous company to start this, the largest investor was like, no, do both. Like you can do both. We'll let you do both. And I'm like, no, I don't know how to do that. That's not how my mind works at all. Like I'm an all in and I'll get there. So like go figure whatever your dream is, just go make it happen because nobody's going to do it for you. People will help you. Like awesome resources here. But I mean, if it's going to happen, it's because you make it happen. And guess what? You can. I just played golf with somebody, a big, I just happened to end up playing golf with this person. And he remembered me from when we were raising our Series A. He said, oh yeah, we looked at that. And, we passed. And I was like, oh yeah. That's awesome.
How's that feel now?
I'm like, you blew it. And he's like, I know. And I'm like, that's awesome. But we figured it out. They told, and I won't say who it is because you would know who it is. And they said, yeah, we thought there was no way it would happen. And I was like, a lot of people thought there was no way it would happen. Who cares? Right? Like, who cares?
Keep going. Yeah. Last question, John. So, Kansas City, building a company in Kansas City as a startup founder, what resources do you wish you had that maybe were more community related or that would come from places like this? Like what would have helped you as a founder along your journey that you didn't have in Kansas City?
I don't know. So I started the company when I was 40. So I was later in life.
That's not uncommon. I think a lot of people have this misperception or this conception that like, these college kids starting companies, but what I think the research shows is it's more people who have been in a corporate environment who've like
that's awesome. Okay.
So not that. Okay. You're not that much of a unicorn there. Sorry.
No, yeah. Oh, well, that's awesome then.
So you started at 40.
Yeah. I don't know, like I remember I went and talked to Lisa Mitchell when she was at Kaufman and I was like, hey, I think I'm going to do this thing. And she was like her energy back was awesome. And then she introduced me to somebody and like, she tells the story too, is like, the next week I was on a plane and I spent the week in San Francisco meeting people because that one person introduced me to a bunch of other people. And she was like, I couldn't believe you did that. And I was like, well, yeah, like I'm biased to action. I'm not somebody who's going to overplan. I'm going to go and figure it out. Right. One quick aside, Mike and I were driving to St. Louis, the city and county of St. Louis, phenomenal early clients of ours and longtime clients. We wrote the contract on our way over. I drove so he could we didn't have a contract. So he wrote the contract and then we got there and we got him to sign it. It was amazing. It was like, I'll never forget it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah. So,
but there are resources like you, like think of the influence you've had, the like you throw a rock in a pond, that ripple effect, the ripple effect you're having here, man, just like it is, it's lonely. Like business building is lonely. Like the worst parts for me were always at night when I would lay there and couldn't do anything. Like that's the worst. And then once I can wake up and get going again, then it's all better. Right. Like, so just know everybody goes through that. It's hard for everybody. It's stressful for everybody. You're not alone. There's comfort in that. I read it in a book, A Hard Thing About Hard Things. Ben Horowitz
Great book.
talks about, like, he just tells story after story of how freaking hard it was and how close they were to going bankrupt all the time and things like that. And I was just like, oh, it's not just me. Like there's something comforting in that. But just keep figuring it out.
John, thanks for a couple. Thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for sharing your story. I appreciate it. Thanks for building your company in Kansas City and staying here. I appreciate it. Thanks for acquiring companies and bringing that talent to Kansas City. We all
it's fun. That. Yeah, thank you. Hey, and good luck to all of you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Disruption Lab podcast, brought to you by the Keystone Innovation District and recorded live at Keystone Sessions. I am your host, Kevin McGinnis, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Be sure to tune in next Thursday for more insights from entrepreneurs, innovators, and industry disruptors. Until then, keep challenging the norm and making waves.